President Rahul Gandhi has been taking on the Modi government in a number of speeches recently. Encouraged by his success in forming a government in Karnataka as well as the BJP's losses in bi-poll elections, Rahul Gandhi's attacks have been getting increasingly scathing. But his speeches have been marred by some obvious missteps. Yesterday, while addressing party workers in Delhi, Gandhi claimed that the Coca-Cola company was created by a lemonade seller. He made equally strange claims about McDonald's, Ford and other companies as well. He was trying to make the point that there is a lack of opportunity for talented people in India. Now today he spoke in Mumbai and also brought up the fact that he visited ailing former Prime Minister Vajpayee first, which sounded an off note. So why does Rahul Gandhi commit these self-goals? To speak on this, I'm joined now by political analysts Neerja Chaudhary and Amitabh Tiwari. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. I'm going to come to Ms. Chaudhary first to see if she agrees with the point I'm making. Rahul Gandhi seems to have made a vast improvement from a couple of years ago in the way he's speaking. But once in a while, these odd phrasings and sentences come up and you really don't know what he's trying to say. Is that a challenge?
Yeah, I would agree with you that on the whole he is up the ante. He's going much more for the jugular, the point that would hurt. Is the Prime Minister running the country on the basis of bhashans? Now that is a phrase one is now increasingly hearing coming from ordinary people also. Or that he is only stands for 15 or 20 people in the country. That's also becoming a question mark, is he for the rich only? Earlier it wasn't sticking. But yes, like you're saying about Coca-Cola and the Shikanji seller, maybe his speech writers need to be much more careful about facts. But the essential point I think he was making is people who've had very humble beginnings in the US made it to the top, are running MNCs, whereas this is less possible in India, even though people have that kind of enterprise and drive. But given the way that Rahul bashing is something of an industry now in the country set up by his opponents, then his speech writers really need to be a little more careful on facts also.
Fair point. Perhaps you will have to hold leaders accountable for what they say, even if the speech writers are writing it for them. I want to get Amitabh Tiwari's take. There may be a point at the end of all of those examples. The question is whether he is reaching that point in a clear enough manner and able to communicate what he's trying to say to voters, because that's the ultimate test, isn't it?
See, he has improved, as Neerja ji is saying, but as you were saying as well, he keeps on making these gaffes, and yesterday's speech, cannot be justified in any way. And I work with politicians, and it is very easy to blame the speech writers. I'm sure they would not have written this kind of speech, but what happens is that the politicians a lot of times don't like the speeches which have been given to them, and then they get on their own tangent. It happens with me as well. Coming back to Rahul Gandhi, yesterday was an OBC meet, and he spoke about everything apart from the OBC commission and the issues regards with the reservation. So he is talking about freedom of expression, then Coca-Cola, then McDonald's, everything apart from the real issues which affect the OBCs currently. And that was a good platform for Rahul Gandhi, because recently BJP lost 2 by-polls in UP because they did not get the OBC vote. Now the OBC vote, which was essentially with Congress and then moved to Janata Dal, then to regional parties and then to BJP, is a significant chunk of the electorate. It is 52% of the electorate. And yesterday, if he is talking about McDonald's and Ford, etc., was it denigrating the people? If people from India have not formed Pepsi's and McDonald's, who is responsible? Congress was in power for 55 years out of 70 years. So what was he trying to say?
Okay, I want to get Ms. Chaudhary in on that. Do you think the message was off, or it was the wrong place in the wrong audience? I've noticed in a number of speeches he has a couple of standard pet lines. When he goes to a place, suppose it's in Madhya Pradesh last time, where he'll say, look at this phone, I hope one day to see a made in Madhya Pradesh phone. So there are a couple of lines which are, getting repeated a bit. You could blame it on speech writers, but at this point, when all eyes are on Rahul Gandhi, he's pitched himself as a possible prime ministerial candidate. His party is doing it all the time. He's up against a very powerful orator. He'll have to step up his game.
Look, I think that way you're right, that you cannot absolve yourself of the responsibility of the speech that you are delivering yourself, whoever may have written it. It is your speech. So therefore, yes, he is responsible also for what he says. And I also agree that, if the humble and the poor have not made it in the country as they should have in 7 decades, Congress party is also to a very large measure responsible, because it happened in their rule, a large, over 40 years of their rule. Both those points are well taken. But to say that Coca-Cola is not something that the OBC youth will not identify with, or McDonald's hamburgers are not something which are now these chains are. Coca-Cola goes to the furthest village. We lament the fact that you don't have, for the nutrition of children, things not reaching them in the furthest corners of the country, and that needs to be stepped up. But Coca-Cola is going there, the messaging is going there, so that the youth will not, OBC youth will not identify with burgers and all. I don't buy that in today's India. The point being what I said, earlier, that you can fault him for saying, it wasn't a shikanji seller or a lemonade seller who rose to become Coca-Cola. It was somebody other than that. In terms of that factual bit, yes, you can fault him. But the broad point that you need to create the climate in the country where our bright people, or even our not so bright people, can make it good. I think that point is well taken, but then his own party's governments are also responsible for that not happening.
Well, he is speaking now in a pre-election year. So it's obvious that any opposition leader will want to talk about what the current government is not doing. So let's look a bit at that message, Amitabh, and how effectively that is being delivered. So things like Soot Boot Ki Sarkar, things like Gabbar Singh tax did hit home. If we were to look at like a sort of scorecard of Rahul phrases and what has worked and what has not, these two perhaps have hit home. He's talking about job and youth. Do you think that he's managing to chip away at the BJP's sheen in that sense?
See, he is succeeding to a certain extent. I mean, the surveys are a proof of that, where CSDS is showing that the gap between Modi and Rahul is closing. But when you approach the elections, you have to present your thought as well. And that is what is currently missing in this entire piece. Saying that Modi is giving bhashan and there has been nothing done on the job front, and youth are unemployed, and it is GST is Gabbar Singh tax. But what is your vision? How are you going to tackle the job problem? What alternative are you going to present before the people for GST? So these are the things people will ask him as the elections approach. Criticizing Modi government is fine. I mean, you have the government has been there for 4 years, and a certain level of anti-incumbency does creep in, and people get bored seeing Modi, all over the elections and giving perhaps the same speeches. But people will ask, what is the agenda of the Congress? What is the alternative? What is the ideology? What is the principles? What are the methods by which Congress will solve the problems of India? And how it will solve these problems when for 55 years it has not been able to solve the problem? So that is a big question which the people will ask.
That is a key question, and in fact, in today's speech, Rahul Gandhi speaks again and again about how Congress is the only alternative to protect the country. He keeps talking about Desh Ki Raksha and the Congress in that context in a variety of examples. But is there enough clarity on what he will do, Ms. Chaudhary, and is that perhaps the gaps which need to be filled as we come towards 2019?
Yes, indeed, that, you see the farmers' distress about which he's spoken repeatedly, the job creation or the lack of job creation about which he's really hammering away, and that is a weak point of this government. Yes, the Congress and the opposition parties will have to come up with their blueprint of how they are also going to do it, because that is not very clear. That point is absolutely well taken. But some of his, some of his lines like watchman for the 1520, watchman for the 1520 rich people in the country not being able to be run on the basis of bhashans, like the Soot Boot Sarkar, which also really stung. Some are, he's catching hold of things that may stick in people's mind, and some, as you say, completely fall flat, and the audience may not relate to it. So it's, overall, I would agree that Rahul Gandhi is so much better than he was earlier. And the one thing that you cannot fault him for as the leader of the major opposition parties, that he is just going at it. He is not, letting things be. And this now with the, temperatures rising as far as election tempo is concerned, we can expect more and more of that. And of course, there will be, when he makes the faux pas, there will be the criticism on social media or otherwise of what he says.
To be fair, it's there on both sides. Fact checks take place on both sides, and it's only right that leaders are held accountable for what they say. In the age of social media, all of their speeches are going to be heard. They perhaps can't afford to have too many repetitions and the same ideas, so they need to get cracking, as do their speech writers. Thank you so much, Amitabh Tiwari and Neerja Chaudhary, for speaking with us today.